Hello, everyone. I am Leslie Schaller. I am the Director of Programs at the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. And I'm with you today to share some information in collaboration with the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. We've established a series on how to help West Virginia market vendors. And I'm going to focus on how to create the best labels. So thank you for joining us. And just a little background on ACEnet. You may or may not have heard of us. Again, Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. We work regionally and have done a lot of collaboration with a lot of different local and regional food partners throughout West Virginia. But ACEnet is a regional entrepreneurship and economic development organization. We're headquartered in Athens, Ohio. Our mission is to grow the regional economy by supporting entrepreneurs and strengthening economic sectors. Our vision, we envision a resilient economy in which all people have the resources and opportunities to prosper. If you're familiar with ACEnet at all, you'll recognize that our approach is really to work with other partners in a collaborative way. Cooperation and collaboration is embedded in all that we do. Our focus is really how do we build networks regionally throughout Central Appalachia? How do we support innovation? And how do we really do that on the ground facilitation of collaboration? We feel that these are the key values to really create a strong, sustainable regional economy, not just for us in Ohio and West Virginia, but throughout Central Appalachia. So why do we do this? Well, we have a long history of working within the food sector. We really feel that our purpose is to lift the people and places throughout Appalachia. Just a couple smiling faces here. Some examples of farmers market vendors from our Athens farmers market, which is celebrating over 50 years of operation. So ACEnet has also a very long history, 30 plus years of working directly with individual farmers market vendors, but also with many farmers market associations and statewide associations like the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. So why am I here today? Well, I'm here as a partner. ACEnet is a collaborator on a 3-year project to provide assistance to West Virginia Farmers Market Association vendors, market associations, and partners. So we're here to help. Our staff, and we have a lot of incredibly passionate and committed staff members here at ACEnet who work directly with farmers and food entrepreneurs to do one-on-one individualized counseling. So in your case, those of you who are attending this webinar, we might be able to make some market plan recommendations for your operation. We definitely have a lot of opinions and recommendations how to suggest maybe building your own brand recognition, whether you're selling direct at a farmer's market or maybe even straddling some both direct and wholesale market opportunities. Local food demand is growing, so we think there are endless opportunities for you, no matter what phase of business you're in, to really build more brand awareness about the good work that you're doing and the good food that you're bringing to our communities. And then probably of most interest from a lot of the work that we've done over the past year is we have a multimedia designer on ACEnet staff. Her name is Avery Snyder, and she can provide graphic design assistance. So if you need help developing a logo, or maybe developing a label, or maybe tweaking even an existing logo or label, we can help with that as well. One of the great aspects of this collaboration is creating affordability if you need a nutrition facts panel. Adam Cody on our staff, who runs both of our food ventures and our food and farm enterprise, center here in Athens County. 2 of our processing facilities would be your direct pipeline to getting some of the help you might need if you're interested in placing a nutrition facts panel on your label. And I think as more and more consumers look to the benefits of local food, they're also in many ways looking for other health information. So we've made this opportunity really affordable for you to participate in this program to get some of the nutrition facts panels. And if you need more than a couple, we probably can again come up with an affordable pathway to develop those panels for you. And then we can also just weigh in overall label design. You know, there's always a lot of compliance issues. You have amazing experts within the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, as well as the greater partnership with folks working on this collaboration. So if you need our help, that's something that we can often help with as well. So let's get to the main point of our presentation here today. You know, where are you in terms of maybe getting started maybe as a new vendor at a farmer's market, or maybe really wanting to polish your brand awareness as an existing vendor? You know, where are you in terms of really taking your label to the next level? So what do you have in place already? You know, do you have the following: a farm or business name that you currently use? Do you have a logo that you've been utilizing maybe in your signage, maybe on a business card, maybe on labels that you've developed? Have you selected maybe some consistent colors or fonts? We often refer to this as part of your style guide for building your brand. Having consistency, even when you're doing direct sales at a farmer's market, helps your customers remember you. We're visual learners oftentimes as adults, so being able to quickly determine, oh, I recognize that farm brand. They're always at, you know, this area of the market. I recognize their colors. I recognize the fonts that they use in all their design elements. And then graphics for social media, or maybe you even have a website. Maybe you're doing some e-commerce online in a variety of different ways. There's a lot of options out there these days. So having an integrated approach so that everything is consistent, I think sometimes is a big challenge. So we're here to help on that. You also might want to develop other print materials. So maybe your business is growing. You'd like to have some flyers maybe printed, or maybe you're developing from your existing signage some additional publications like posters or rack cards that could even be shared maybe with other partners like a tourism bureau or a chamber of commerce. And then I think sometimes as farmers, we don't always think of ourselves as business people, but even your farm operation, especially if you have a farm name or a farm business name, it really helps to have a business card. There's always going to be opportunities for you to connect with customers. So having a card that you could share with folks who are interested in what you're doing, you know, that's a great way to help them remember you. And then signage. I know that there's been a lot of conversation within the West Virginia Farmers Market Association to really build the overall aesthetics and interest within different market associations. So how do we invest in getting maybe the next level of signage together? Do you use a banner maybe on your pop-up tent? Some people are even investing in having their tents printed with their logo and name. Do you use chalkboards, especially in terms of informing your customers at your market stand what your pricing is? How do you use that chalkboard maybe in a way that promotes brand awareness? Sandwich signs, placards. There's just so many different ways to draw attention to your operation as a vendor at a farmer's market. So thinking about logos and labels. Well, a lot of times you can't really get started with a label until you've made some decisions about logos. Oftentimes you have maybe talent within your family. You know, you might have a grandchild who's a really gifted artist. Are there ways that you can use other resources that might be available at your disposal? So sort of that free design assistance. There's a lot of different programs out there. I know in these West Virginia workshops, we've talked about some of the opportunities that the Canva software provides for designers. There's folks on staff at the West Virginia Farmers Market Association who can help you utilize some of these various software applications. So I always encourage, depending on what stage of business you're in, is think affordable, think no cost maybe at first. And that's the beauty of this collaboration. If you need some graphic design help, ACEnet staff members, Avery, myself, and another staff member, Megan Loveland at ACEnet, can help you think through some of the logo, label, and even some of the social media platforms that you want to use. So clip art might make sense at first. I would certainly encourage everyone to check out Canva. It's been a game changer, I know, for many of our farmers and food entrepreneurs. It's a great resource, I know, for the ACEnet staff to utilize as well. But there might be designers in your community. So is there some opportunity maybe for some pro bono, maybe some bartering? Maybe you could get a logo design with a CSA subscription, or just bartering some produce throughout the season. A lot of times designers, especially folks working at the community level, they want to be able to build their portfolio, have maybe a wider range of types of graphic design that they do. So if you're a farmer, don't rule out working with designers. Don't think that, oh, it's something that maybe I can't afford initially. There might be some really creative ways for you to be able to work with professional designers in your community. Again, your market association, your statewide association, the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, is going to provide great resources there. So oftentimes they're the ones who connect you to folks working in your community. I think I'm an endless infomercial here for the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, but they're doing amazing work, and you should tap in to all the resources that they're providing. So who decides and ultimately approves your logo or label? Are there some restrictions or expectations in terms of your logo or label design? Probably not. You're probably the ultimate decider. But if there are some requirements, maybe in terms of your vendor agreement within your market association, you should definitely explore that first, especially if you're going to invest some additional cash into working with a designer. And then printing costs are a big consideration. Again, depending on what phase you are in your business, we always encourage people to go affordable maybe at first. What we often find is that over time, you're going to get a lot of good customer feedback. So you're often going to maybe start with a more basic logo and label that over time you can create maybe a more tweaked or sophisticated evolution of that label. So thinking about color, we're going to show a bunch of examples here in a minute of different product labels and logos so that you can get a sense of maybe some of the choices or options out there. So thinking about, what your budget is, what do you initially want to spend? And that could be anywhere from, just a little bit of expense in terms of getting labels printed, maybe getting business cards printed. There's a lot of ways that you can really enter, I would say, the design and brand awareness building part of your business in a very affordable way. So what are the goals? What are those attributes that we really need to think about when we're developing a logo? So these 5 points, I think, are good guideposts to really think about, especially when you're maybe in the design phase or maybe critiquing or evolving an existing logo or label that you have. This is what's really going to stand out to your customers. Simplicity is really important, especially when you're selling direct at a farmer's market or at any kind of food direct marketing event. It could be a pop-up, it could be an annual festival that you attend. You want to be recognized in seconds. You must be easy to understand. So as somebody is walking by your booth, you want them to be able to say, oh, I know that farmer, or oh, I know that food business. So simplicity is really important. If it's too busy, if there's maybe too many words even within your logo or label, that can slow people down, or they might not. We're weird, right? As humans, we just might not want to stop and decipher the communication that you're trying to provide to us, especially when we're maybe loaded down with market bags. So how to be distinct? How do you differentiate your logo and label from your other competitors? So are you a tomato grower? Are you selling a variety of heirloom tomatoes at your farmer's market? Well, how are you different from any of the other tomato growers maybe at that market? Comparing yourself to your competition, what's really going to make you stand out from the rest? And it might be just coming up with your farm name and branding people's awareness so that they're thinking, oh, this is this farm. I've had a great experience purchasing their produce. I recognize their logo. I recognize their brand name. I'm going to come back to them over and over again. And then timeless. We don't want to every couple months or every new market season change our name, change our logo, redesign our labels. We want to come up with something that's going to be somewhat timeless. It doesn't mean that you're not going to evolve it or build on that, but you just always want to make sure that you're creating something that's going to stay meaningful to you and to your farm operation or your food business. You don't want to constantly follow what's trendy at any point in time. Again, it needs to adapt, but coming up with something that, again, for me, timeless is also about what's important to you. How does it reflect your values? How does it tell your story in a way that isn't going to change? I think that's important to think about. So then maybe a little counterintuitive, you want to be timeless, but you also need to be adaptable. So it might adapt over time, but thinking at the early stage, how does my logo work? It's a different size on a business card. It's a way different size if I'm making a banner that I'm going to attach to my pop-up tent. Maybe I'm using different, a chalkboard that I have the same heading over time that really has my name and my logo on it. So how do I create something that's going to be adaptable for very different types of sizes, from print materials to signage to logos on labels. And then how am I going to, again, thinking about that affordability question, how am I going to make it work so that I can use it in a variety of different ways, from social media, maybe on a Facebook page, to maybe an e-commerce website that I'm developing, to all the print materials that I think are important. And then relevant, back to kind of how does it align with your values? What does it represent? What's your goal? How is that jiving, or how is that meaningful to your customer base as well? So thinking about the relevancy, that's also important to your audience. So maybe you're a certified organic grower in the state of West Virginia, and you really want to communicate that you're different, maybe some of the other competitors within your market. Are there ways that you want to be able to communicate that? Because that's most relevant to you. Doesn't mean that organic necessarily needs to be in your name, but maybe it's part of the other communication that you're providing to customers, either in print materials, social media, or a variety of different ways. So here's the part of the presentation where we go from words and bullet points to actual examples. Many of the packaging, logos, labels that I'm going to now show you through this slideshow are examples of the types of products that are sold direct to consumers at farmers markets. But many of them straddle both direct and wholesale markets. So you'll find a lot of the images I have of product lines produced in Ohio and West Virginia that are also in other locations, like the Wild Ramp or the public market in West Virginia, those bricks and mortar type of farmers markets that are more retail store-like than maybe a once a week or even a seasonal farmers market. So I encourage people, especially if you're in the early stage and you know your business goals, to think about how your logo or your label is going to translate for some of these different market opportunities. But here's some examples, I think, that really highlight simplicity, some of the values that these businesses and farmers really want to communicate to their customers. So this mustache on fire, the bread and butter pickles and the hot and spicy pickles, you can see that their brand name is Randy's Pickles, but the logo communicates to a large degree, and I think plays on both, here's the peppers, but here's also some of our, I guess, having fun in terms of the descriptors of our products. So I look at those peppers, and I also, in some ways, subliminally, I think, get the mustache on fire communication as well. These labels, I would say, to a large degree, are somewhat current right now. A lot of people like a clean white background. They want their labels to be readily readable. So if you're walking by looking at a product on a shelf or on a farmer's market table, you can pretty quickly identify what these products are. The other thing of note with Randy's Pickles is choosing the size of your label as well. So what I love about his labels is they don't take up that much of the jar space. You can still clearly see what the pickles look like. I think they really work in a complementary fashion. And then the nut butters from Nosh, again, this is a logo that's really, in many ways, all about choosing the font. So to a large degree, it's Nosh Butters. But the play, I think, on turning the O into an image of one of the nuts, I think also is really playful, really creative, and again, very readable, white background. The only thing I would say about these labels is sometimes it's a little harder to read what the actual butters are. So if you look at that top jar, you know, that's the cashew almond, the coconut cashew, and the mocha almond are the 3 different varieties. The only thing I will say about these labels is they're trying, their product has a certain jar size. So one of the trade-offs, and you can't really see it in this photograph, is how much space does that label take up? You can see that there are, in these 3 different varieties of nut butters, they're different colors. You can sort of see the differentiation between the 3 varieties. They've opted to have a front label and then a top label on that jar. So if I'm a customer and I'm picking up one of these jars, I can read the label, but I can also turn it around and actually see the nut butter through the glass jar as well. And then the third product here in the middle, the ramp crackers, again, sort of heritage product, I would say, messaging here, beautiful graphics of the ramp. A lot of the fonts, I think, also reflect to a large degree that heritage feel. The fact that it's multiple colors, so you get kind of the craft brown look to the label, but you still see a lot of great detail in terms of the green popping out around the border. You see, again, the ramp itself, graphic design is really prominent. Another challenge in terms of this label and packaging is how to make sure that you get all the information you want on one label. And that's something Avery on our staff or myself or Megan can really help with, thinking about the placement of information on your individual label. Labels should really reflect your story. So here's some, again, different examples kind of in the beverage category. Many of you might be familiar with Snowville Creamery. They're one of our larger fluid milk processors here in southeastern Ohio. But over their history, they've also tweaked and adapted their logo and packaging. I would encourage you to look at maybe some of the evolution. I can share that with you as well. They just recently sort of modernized their Milkmaid. But again, you recognize the font, you recognize what's been most integral to their branding, which is that graphic design of the Milkmaid. Another relatively new business, and I love the Me and the Bees. This is a youth entrepreneur who's started this whole beverage line of different varieties of lemonade. The colors of the label definitely differentiate the different varieties, flavor varieties of each of the individual ready-to-drink beverages. And then I love at the top of this label, the little bee graphic, with the established 2009 on either side. Plus, because I think so much of her story is being a young entrepreneur, having her image on the label, I think is really important. So you look at the fonts, they're kind of creative, they're kind of playful, but I think they work overall with both the photography and with the actual little bee graphic design there at the top. And then thinking about what's affordable, especially at the beginning, backroom coffee roasters, they're using craft bags, but then they're using a lot of their label information in a way that they can just slip the cardboard labels around each of their packaging. And then the packaging also is reflected in the tamper-proof or sealable seal that they have at the top of the bag. So we'll talk a lot about color here as we go through these different examples of the label and logo photography. But I think one of the first decisions that you really need to make is, oh my goodness, there's so many different opportunities to choose a font. There's thousands of fonts are out there. Again, strongly encourage people to check out Canva and see some of the graphic design options there. But thinking about, what kind of packaging am I using? What's the size of my label going to be? Whether it's a craft bag that you're printing or a labeled, maybe just printing on your home computer, an Avery label that then you're going to apply to a jar or to a package. Thinking about what's important to your customers. And I think particularly when we're selling direct at a farmer's market, coming up with the fonts that are easy to read as people walk by. So those what I would call more graphic design or artsy fonts, the script, the hand look. If you're going to go down that route, really, I would say get some good feedback. Maybe even have some examples. We've done this a lot at our various farmers markets that we work with, where you can actually get some feedback from your customers. Early on, when Shagbark Seed and Mill was starting to choose what their logo was going to be, we did some sort of focus group feedback at their farmers market booth, or I even went around with a clipboard and sort of accosted farmers market customers to see if they would rate what they thought was most appealing, what attracted them. So there's serif, there's sans serif, there's this more script, what I would call more arty kind of fonts, and then the decorative fonts as well. Oftentimes those decorative fonts are also very bold, and that might be another option in terms of, again, figuring out what's going to be readable. We all have different eyesight. Some of us have younger eyes, some of us have older eyes. So think about who your customer base is. If most of your customers are baby boomers who maybe are having some issues with their eyesight, or even noticing how many of your customers maybe do wear glasses, thinking about, how you're going to fit your logo, your font to really appeal to maybe the cohort of customers that you have. So some more examples. These are 3 different products. I like to look at the Sin Soy one first. I would say this is an example of one of those more artsy or decorative fonts. I have trouble a little bit with some of their label and logo design. I think it's evolving. You see the Sin because they're headquartered in Cincinnati. But I think their products are so unique that what some of us might interpret as a harder font to read, or even a graphic design, I think that's a little confusing at times. You're so, I would say, drawn to the uniqueness maybe of what they're offering, that sort of balances out with some of the logo or label design. Creekside Farm, again, they have drinkable different goat milk varieties. They also have cheeses. So thinking about your logo and your label, if you have multiple different types of product lines with different types of packaging, you want to make sure that whatever logo or label design that you create, that's maybe going to go on a bottled product, and then on a clamshell, and then on a craft bag, that your customer is still reading all those product lines as your business. You wouldn't want to have a different logo for a beverage as opposed to the goat cheese here example with Creekside. So again, you look at their packaging, there's different product lines here, but you immediately know that it's Creekside. And I think for them, the important value was to really talk about their sense of place and have a very simple logo that just kind of reflects the rolling foothills here in Appalachia, Ohio, as well as the little graphic that shows the water flowing by. And then another business that has really grown over the last number of years, Patter Fam, they have, boy, I would hesitate to guess, but I would say they've got to a point where they have 30 different products that they process now in their own FDA licensed processing facility. As they grew and extended the number of types of products, from jams and jellies to sauces to, I think they do a line of mustards. They needed a logo and a label that really was distinguishable for this wide range of products. And that might be true even of a farmer's market vendor. You might be someone who produces a whole bunch of different varieties of jams and jellies at peak season. You want to be able to, again, have a label and a logo that's going to be uniform enough so that people are recognizing, oh, I bought the raspberry jam in July, but then I'm going to buy I don't know, I'm trying to think of another, what's the elderberry jam in September, or the pawpaw preserves in October. You still want people to recognize that this is all your products under your brand. So I think the Patter Fam example, first and foremost, when you look at that label, you recognize the font for their name, and then again, very much on trend, more and more people picking some portion of their label to have the white background, so the product name really, really pops. And even all the requirements in terms of ounces and grams, a lot of the information that needs to go on sort of that front principal display panel, especially if it's a craft bag or a clam shell or a bottled product. You want to make sure that people are getting that information pretty quickly with a glance. So then choosing, we talked about fonts. So let's talk about colors. I think colors, especially for food businesses, are sometimes even a little trickier or a little more complicated. If your customer, and we saw some examples earlier, if you really want them to see your pickles, or you really want them to see the colors of your nut butters, you want to make sure your label is complementary to the product. And I think, so sometimes a bunch of pink and purple labels don't look real great on salsas. So thinking about, what are the colors in my ingredient or in my product, and trying to create a color scheme that is complementary to what the customer is seeing within that packaging. And this is where there's so many resources out there online. You might want to dabble in a little bit of research. We respond to color differently. So I think choosing colors first and foremost around not clashing with the ingredients that are in your jar or your package, especially if it's a clear clamshell, probably makes the most sense. And we'll see some more examples here. But ultimately, it's your decision. If your favorite color is purple, then purple might still be important for you. And it might not be the most prominent color. If you have a multicolor printed label, again, try and not get too busy, go back to that simplicity value. We always encourage people to not use more than 3 fonts, preferably 2, and to not use more than 3 colors, because again, it becomes overwhelming. So here's some, I think, some great examples of how to use color in a way that also addresses maybe the different varieties or flavors that you have within your product line. So the one photograph here of Spiral Path Therapies, again, it's like you instantly get the logo. You see it adapted in all these different color varieties. I just think this is a really appealing label overall, and easy to read. You see the business name, Spiral Path Therapies, the circle, half circle going over the logo, and then you clearly can read the different varieties, from fever blister balm to bronzing highlight. Again, she has a wide range of different products, so she's using different color bottles for her tinctures and massage oils. She's using metal containers for the balms. She's using a glass with a plastic lid for some of the other natural beauty products. And then Wolf Tree, again, Wolf Tree Winery, very simple. They don't even have the word winery. They just have Wolf Tree. They have the gorgeous, I would say, graphic design of the tree. And what I love on this one is that it just really pops. That the blueberry mead has the blueberry logo. That the rhubarb has the red. So using color, again, for your customers to immediately sort of say, okay, I'm coming back. I'm a return buyer of the rhubarb wine. Well, I know that that's going to have the red logo. The other thing, and I don't think it's totally color coordinated, but to a large degree, he's also used the different sleeves to secure the top of the bottles, and oftentimes they're color coordinated with the logos as well. So more uses of color, from charcuterie, printed labels on a craft bag that's wrapped, again, associating different colors with different varieties. The Red Dog, the various different seasoning spices here and rubs. These are just fun, and again, even though this might be a little more arty or decorative of a font, I think the font, it just matches so perfectly with the graphic design work. So having that so integrated. And then even though the labels take up a good amount of the sort of shaker jar, the plastic container, you can still see both at the top and the bottom what that product looks like inside it. This is another one, this breaks my rule of pink and purple on a red mix, that Jammin' Salmon rub. But I think it works here, so again, it's what works for you. There's no total rules here. And I think color can be used in so many different appealing ways that initially it attracts a customer to your products, but over time, I think it also is reflective of just the overall vibe, the values that you really want to share with your customers. And then simple, affordable, Crumbs Bakery, they just use color paper that they print their labels on and then apply them to their different bread products. Again, thinking about readability, I don't know, there's different ways to look at, I think, these labels. They're a long-standing business here in southeastern Ohio for decades and decades. I think what's most important in terms of the communication with their customers is they're using color oftentimes to distinguish some of their brands. And then one of our other businesses that has gone through about 2 evolutions now of their logo and label are the Lap It Up kombucha, again, using script on their label for the product description, the blueberry, cardamom, the lemon, ginger, the strawberry. These are fonts that they're using, but they give that sort of sense of artisanal, handwritten, but still, I think a really easy to read label, very attractive, still applied in such a way that you can see a lot of the beverage within each of the glass jars. So thinking about images, again, I can't say enough about Canva. I know there's folks in the West Virginia Farmers Market Association that probably can help you navigate Canva as well. You may have an image that maybe you're artistic and you've done some graphic design work that you want to incorporate. So I don't think there's any right pathway here, but thinking about, how images should reflect your style and your product type. These are just 6 different examples. You might be going for, at first, a really simple logo and label, just a one color, black and white, or black printed on a craft bag. Figuring out, again, what's most available, I think, what's really accessible, and in a way that you understand your customers and what's going to appeal to them. So images, it should always reflect your style and your product type. I mean, that's what I love going back to Lap It Up. This is, I think, a great label overall. Not that I have favorites, but you recognize Lap It Up. The words are the most important part of her logo design. Then you see how she's using color, and then how there's some, there's a little bit more fun. There's more definition using the script for the different flavor varieties. So you don't always have to be that drawn necessarily to a logo. A couple other examples, I always like to show how people are using different packaging. Oftentimes, especially farmers market vendors, you might be using stock jars, you might be using mason jars. Royal Cottage, I think she does a great job where the whole front of the label is all about the logo and her font, so her image of the cottage, and then all the information to really meet with the requirements or the compliance is on the top. Now, the one thing I will say about thinking about printing labels, especially if you're selling at a farmer's market or any sort of direct or even wholesale market opportunity, is it takes time to apply labels. A lot of times people are up really late on a Friday, getting ready for a farmer's market early Saturday morning. I think with Royal Cottage, using that round label on top of the jar, it's not going to be that problematic. It sort of fits right in the center of that jar lid. But customers can be crazy sometimes about, you can have a beautiful product, and if your label is applied just a little bit crooked, that might be off-putting for a buyer. So thinking about how much labor it takes to apply labels as well. And then the example of the passion flower tea, this is a partnership or collaboration between one of our art studios, Passionworks, and Herbal Sage Tea Company. She does a private label basically for Passionworks. So taking their artwork, their fonts, and then applying it using the same tins that herbal sage uses for all her other tea products. And then packaging, oh my goodness, so many different options. So whether it's clamshells, whether it's different types of plastic containers that you can apply safety seals to, you can go a lot of different directions here in terms of how affordable. The quail eggs, Primaterra Farm, these are Avery labels, but I think they look great. It's a black and white label. The graphic design of the quail, I think, is so attractive. The fonts that they've chosen, you'll notice that it's pretty much all caps. So that's another thing to think about in fonts too, in terms of size, and is it all caps? Is it a mix? But again, I think that's a great example of a really affordable label. The Greenleaf Acres, again, using a variety of, there's 3 different fonts, if you'll notice on these labels. And there's, again, I would say one of the challenges, different print size labels, how do they fit within your packaging? So this is a great label, I think, from Greenleaf Acres. I love the graphic design images in the center. Again, a combination of using script as well in terms of the description. But, thinking about that, the product Greenleaf Oakleaf, in terms of what type of lettuce you're buying, that pops a little bit more, which I think is important. And then one of our fudge and overall Buckeye makers, Sarah's Sweets. Again, this is a label that she's evolved over time, but using some different colors, using, I would say, her logo that probably she's had, that Sarah's Sweets logo, again, totally reliant on the fonts selection, but then just it has almost a quilt-like, I would say, subliminal response when you see the little dotted line around the edge of her graphics, both on the product descriptor Buckeyes and then even the gourmet chocolates on the side. So what I like about this example is she's maximizing all the space on a pretty small label, and applying it in such a way that you still can see what the product is. More examples of different types of bags. Talked a little bit about herbal sage. Aside from the tins that she uses, she also uses this green packaging. Again, really communicating to her customers that this is an organic, USDA certified organic product. So she has the additional sticker. Sticky Pete's, one of our maple syrup producers, also does a whole variety of maple syrup products, especially I think in these cello bags, just with the tie. It really has that kind of gift product line communication as well. She does a lot of different seasonal gift baskets that include some of these products, as well as the different sizes. And she uses different bottles types for her maple syrup as well. And then other examples of craft bags with a window cut out. We see this a lot with folks who might be, we have a lot of people doing a variety of pet product lines, but also granolas, bread mixes. What do you want your customer to see? And I think even using these simple craft bags with the cutouts, I think really appeal to customers. I think we kind of want to know what's in that bag. And then really complicated labels to really simple labels. The Brownwood Farms, again, probably I would hesitate to guess, but it's probably 45, maybe 60 different varieties of products. Again, a really appealing use of their logo, Brownwood Farms at the top, and then matching all the fonts. I think these also have that, I don't know, communicate a kind of heritage feel to me. And quite frankly, this is a very large business. This is one of ACEnet's largest food processors within our Food and Farm Enterprise Center. So they didn't get started with that type of label. It's taken time, really 10, 12 years to get to that point. But, you might be a home baker. You can still have a really attractive label just on choosing some fonts, choosing some colors for those fonts, even on your home printer using an Avery label. What I love about how the cherry hand pie labels are applied is that they didn't plop it right in the center. They put it at an edge, I guess, of the plastic bag, so that you can see that cutout in the middle. And then some more examples. There's all different ways that you can use affordable bags, select affordable labels that you can have professionally printed. Part of the West Virginia Farmers Market Association program is helping you get labels printed. Take advantage of that. The cookie business, here again, this is where the variety of cookies that they're producing are just so colorful. I think different color labels, what I would normally not think of as maybe appropriate colors for food businesses, I think breaks all the rules here. And then just a really simple hang tag label on the honey products. So, matching your packaging to your labeling, especially the labeling type. Again, I will say, there's a lot of handwork putting these labels together. So always things to think about in terms of how much am I selling, what's really feasible for me to do. If I'm only selling 300 jars of something that's hand labeled over a couple of weeks at a farmer's market, that seems maybe more doable in terms of the labor commitment that I have. And then more examples, tins, craft bags. So applying labels, getting your bags actually printed. Again, Dirty Girl, they've gone far with their logo design. Again, really recognizable within the marketplace here in southeastern Ohio. And then some more examples, different types of packaging, different ways to use both printed and Avery labels. And just thinking about all the aspects of what you're communicating, what the scale of your business is also going to determine what's affordable for you to do at any point in time. So some more easy examples. The Primatera Farms, we looked at their quail eggs earlier. So you can see same fonts, different graphic designs. So, the images of the kale, Peanut Butter and Jenny. I love this one. Although I think she's just decided not to continue. But this is another example of the label itself pops. She does have a second label on the back of the jar that has all the more compliance descriptors. But I just love her business name. It's really jumps. So some other examples of hand tags, printed labels on clamshells, another picture of the Dirty Girl. So thinking about, am I vacuum packaging? Am I heat sealing? What kind of jars am I using? So matching your logos and your labels as well to your different products. And then if you really want to go big, one of our chocolate companies here, Travail Farm, they get printed sleeves that they utilize. And I think even the craft paper really stands out. What I love about the In a Jam labels, again, you know, they have that little wrap around edge that gives you that sense of food security, sort of being sealed. And then one of our earlier workshop attendees has utilized ACEnet services to take their logo and labels and I guess we could say take them up a notch, you know. So how to sometimes organize all the information you want on a printed label can be really challenging. So Delia, one of our multimedia designers, took the We Be Frying original and then started to adapt it. So the little animated character of the Cine Locos could pop a little bit more. And again, using that Taste Like Grandma's cinnamon toast, they're crazy good. You know, these are just fun, playful logos. So some of the things to think about, you know, consumers are much more attuned to health benefits. I think that's why the West Virginia Farmers Market Association is really interested to see if people want to develop nutrition facts panels. It's a service that ACEnet can easily provide. You know, more people are really reading labels. They might have food allergies or special diets, or maybe they're just calorie counting. So a lot of that information now on your label, I think, becomes even more important at no matter what scale. And then a professional logo, upgrading sort of your labels. It just communicates a new level of professionalism. It oftentimes will maybe make your product lines stand out a little bit more in a direct marketing kind of way. And then it also, you know, might attract some new wholesale opportunities. A lot of folks who are visiting farmers markets, oftentimes they're looking for new products, maybe stuff that they can stock on their shelves. So not saying that anybody from Food Fair or Kroger or whatever are necessarily shopping at an area farmers market. But some of the buyers that we work with, for instance, I can think of the Public Market in Wheeling or Wild Ramp in Huntington. They're looking for new products at all points, especially coming from West Virginia producers. So it can be, again, a farmer's market or any sort of direct sales can be oftentimes a launch pad for additional wholesale accounts. And then overall, you know, we're doing important work here, building a local food economy. So the more professional we become, the more opportunities that we can take advantage of. It really differentiates the food that people are producing with love and a commitment to their communities. We just really need to get the word out about the advantages of home produced or locally made products. So, you know, just some examples of the work that we can help you with. A good example of the nutrition facts panels for We Be Frying. Again, this was something that they probably would not have done unless they had participated in the West Virginia Farmers Market Association workshops. So we got easy forms. We'll walk you through everything step by step. If you're interested in getting a nutrition facts panel, we can definitely help you fill out the form. And there's the endless ACEnet infomercial. I can be found if you go to acenetworks.org. We have a staff page. My email was on the front. Leslie s@acenetworks.org. I would say calling is not always the greatest way to communicate, because I feel like I spend my life in meetings or on Zoom. But an email is always a great way to get hold of us. And then I would, encourage you to follow ACEnet on social media as well. So thank you. It's been fun. I've done many of these now in person. I think this is a great resource for us to provide these presentations as a webinar format as well.